Hello everyone and welcome to a new video on the channel. In this video I'm going to be going through everything that I watched in the last week of March 2022, so week 4. There's quite a lot. Let me count how many there's. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 titles to talk about for this week. Let's just get straight into it. So first up we have The Next 3 Days. Now I think this was a very well made and clever thriller. It's basically about a man who makes a plan to break his wife out of prison when she's jailed for a crime he believes that she did not commit. And I think that Russell Crowe is absolutely fantastic as the lead and really gives his all, as he does in pretty much everything that he's in. He is one of my favourite actors. The script is absolutely fantastic and it is brilliantly directed by Paul Haggis, who has also directed Crash, which won Best Picture, quite a controversial Best Picture winner, and In the Valley of Elah, both fantastic films. This is also a great film, great thriller. It's very tense and it keeps you on the edge of your seat throughout the whole runtime. It is just over 2 hours long. It's a highly entertaining film and it really makes you think and has a very satisfying ending. I gave The Next 3 Days 4 out of 5 stars. Next up I watched The Choir, or Boy Choir as it is known over in the States. This is an entertaining but not completely satisfying film, and it follows a young boy who's a very troubled young boy. His mother's just died and he's basically put into the care of his father, who he's never met because he's got a family of his own that don't even know of his existence. And he basically is shipped off to this national boy choir in America, which he had previously seen and was supposed to do an audition for in his previous school, but ran off just before giving the audition. And his father basically pays for him to stay there, and yeah, he thinks he's got nothing left, and then this comes into his life. Dustin Hoffman gives quite a subtle performance as the choir master who leads the choir with quite a firm grip. He is quite firm and he believes in the boys, but yeah, as I say, he's quite strict and quite firm with them. It does take time to get going, but once it does, it is a very enjoyable watch, and it is a light-hearted film with a decent story and characters that you could become emotionally invested with. It may not be one that I go back to many times, but I will definitely say it is a good film and one that I enjoyed. I gave The Choir 3.5 stars out of 5. Right, next up is a streaming film, and I decided to watch one that I hadn't seen but I watched because of the cast. It's quite old. It's a film on Netflix called Special Correspondent, and it stars Ricky Gervais and Eric Bana, and is also written and directed by Ricky Gervais, I believe, as well. Now, I really wanted to like this more because I really enjoy Ricky Gervais's humour, but for me personally, and I don't know whether it's just me or whether it is actually just the film, it just didn't really have any of his humour in it. He wasn't very great in it. He didn't really have much to do in it. Didn't really make me laugh that much, and all in all, didn't really work well as a film. The story could have been promising. It's basically about these two news correspondents, well, a news correspondent and his cameraman, who are supposed to fly to a country which I can't even remember now, that's in a war, but they don't because they lose their passports, and they just pretend that they've gone over there and that they've been captured, whereas in actual fact they're over the road from the news station. As I said, the story could have been promising, but the cast was off, didn't really work well, and the humour didn't hit the way that it should have hit. Eric Bana is definitely miscast in this film, and the film's tone overall is all over the place. It doesn't know whether it wants to be a comedy, a drama, a thriller, action. Doesn't really know what it wants to be. Definitely wouldn't watch this again because it just felt like a waste of time all in all, and a chore to get through. I gave Special Correspondence 1 out of 5 stars. Next up, I watched The Phantom of the Opera, another musical to add to the list, and a very entertaining one, which has great songs and a very interesting and romantic story. I think this film helped put Emmy Rossum on the map, although she hasn't really had the biggest career. I mean, some people probably wouldn't know who she is. She's not done a great deal. I mean, she was in the American version of Shameless. I couldn't really tell you a lot of stuff she was in. She was in Mystic River. She was in Poseidon, The Day After Tomorrow, Cold Pursuit. That's about all I can think of. So not a huge amount of films, and not fantastic films anyway. But yet she was good in this. Jared Butler is great as the titular character of The Phantom of the Opera, and it's a very dark film considering it's a musical, but I think it bodes well to a musical. Another film I'm not going to compare this with because I didn't enjoy was Sweeney Todd, which is also a very dark musical. I didn't like Sweeney Todd, just didn't like it at all, but this I did really enjoy. The cinematography in this is beautiful, and whilst the direction at times felt a little bit choppy, it did definitely move at the right pace and had a good beginning, middle and end. It's definitely an entertaining watch with lots of memorable songs and an enticing story. I really enjoyed it, and I gave The Phantom of the Opera 4 out of 5 stars. Next up, a cinema trip, and the film in question is Ambulance. Now, most of Michael Bay's films are just plain bad, just filled with unnecessary stories, arcs, that aren't completed, bad acting, botched story, and just explosions for the sake of them. However, I personally think this is one of his best films since Armageddon, back in '98, I believe. There have been a few since then, but this was a standout. Jake Gyllenhaal and Yahya Abdul-Mateen II were great as the leads in this film, and you did really feel like they had an emotional brotherly connection with each other. This film had a lot of heart to it, and it's mixed with Michael Bay's explosions, which are in the right places, and the powerhouse acting from the leads. This made for a great action thriller that teared me up at the end. It goes with the likes of Speed, not as good as Speed, but it's still a great story, and it's just the story in most of Michael Bay's films, as I say, isn't great. This really had me emotionally invested with the characters, and I just really enjoyed it. I gave Ambulance 4 out of 5 stars. 3 more to go. Next up, I watched Open Range, which recently got Blu-ray released last year, I want to say, either last year or the year before. This is definitely a strong western with fantastic performances from both Kevin Costner and Robert Duvall. It's basically about these cowboys who are trying to escape their past, driving cattle from one place to another, and they come into contact with this small town, which is run by an evil rancher played by Michael Gambon, who is trying to run them out of town, trying to get them away. They have a horrible grip on the town, and these men won't stand for it and are trying to seek justice, and it's absolutely fantastic, the outcome. The cinematography is beautiful, and it does take a while to get going, but once it does, it is gripping, and it builds up to one of the best shootouts in cinema, in my opinion, up there with Unforgiven. The score is sweeping, and it beautifully matches the tone of the film. The story is firm, and it flows really well. It's just a great hit from Kevin Costner. This was the last film he directed, and he's obviously got a new one coming, if you didn't know, called Horizon, which will begin production in August sometime this year, and has been bought by Warner Brothers, which is quite good because obviously they did Wyatt Earp, Robin Hood, The Bodyguard, a lot of his films they've produced. So yeah, sounds interesting. Anything with Kevin Costner in has my attention. This is definitely a criminally underrated film with some of the best performances from all involved. Loved this film, gave it 4 out of 5 stars. Then next up, I watched Nims Island. This is a nice, light-hearted family film starring Abigail Breslin, Jodie Foster, who is one of my favourite actresses, and Jared Butler. Jodie Foster isn't really known for doing roles like this, like comedic roles. This is one of her only comedic roles I've seen. So it was really refreshing to see something different from her, because it was just nice. It's basically about a young girl who lives on an isolated island with her father. Basically, one day he goes missing when he's out on a trip, and she needs to get the help of an adventure novelist who also happens to be an agoraphobic who won't leave her home. This definitely wouldn't win any awards, it's not that type of film, but as far as easy watches go, this is a good one. It's filled with a lot of comedy and a lot of heart. It's just a lovely little family film. I gave Nims Island 3.5 stars out of 5. And the final film to talk about this week, which I don't believe I've actually shown on the channel yet, it should be in my March haul, not March haul, we're in April now, April haul, and that is Beginners, starring Christopher Plummer, for which he won his only Academy Award for, Ewan McGregor and Melanie Laurent. Sorry, just getting the screen back on. So I wanted to watch this, as I say, because this was the only film that Christopher Plummer won an Oscar for, and whilst I think he was good in this, I think some of his other performances in other films were more worthy of an Oscar than this. I'm not saying he's bad in this, he's fantastic in this, as he usually is, but I could think of other films where he deserved an Oscar more than this one. This is definitely a quirky film that also stars Ewan McGregor and Melanie Laurent, as I said. It's definitely a well-made film and a very art house indie type film, and overall I did enjoy it, but it felt like there was something missing from the story. It is mainly a romantic drama with bits of comedy trucked in the right places, which works for its favour, I think. But I did definitely want more from this film, because it did have the potential to be an absolutely fantastic film, and just ended up being an above average film. I gave Beginners 3.5 stars out of 5. And that is it. So that is everything that I watched in the last week of March. I will now do what I usually do and give my highlight of the month and the worst of the month. Let me just look back, because I think I will say the worst of the month is Special Correspondent. Just a pretty awful film. I already explained why. Just didn't enjoy it at all. And then the best of the month, just looking, is probably The Batman, which is no surprises because that was probably the best film released last month. But yeah, really enjoyed The Batman. Probably top 3, well, definitely top 3 favourite films of the year so far. So yeah, that is it. That's everything that I watched in March 2022. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure to give it a like. Subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, and turn your notification bell on so you know when I have a new video uploaded onto the channel. Don't forget to comment down below anything and everything. I get back to anyone that takes the time to leave me a comment. Have you seen any of these, or are there any of these that you are now interested in watching? Then let me know down below. And that's it. So until next time everyone, take care, goodbye.